Welcome to Sam's Stories. Today I'm reading Part 2 of Confessions of a Drama Queen, Class Assembly Calamity by me, Samantha Fell, illustrated by Heather Horsley. Chapter 8. I lay on my bed that night, looking at the ceiling. I did my audition. It all went okay, things considered. There was a knock on the bedroom door. Come in. I sat up. Freddie, what happened today? I can't believe Ebony was doing the same as you. It was Frankie. I didn't want her telling Mum and Dad, so I decided not to tell her about Ebony copying me, and to be honest, she might not believe me anyway. She would probably think I was just being a drama queen. Yeah, I know. What a coincidence, was all I could manage in response. Frankie sighed. Well, you did good anyway, considering you had to make it up on the spot. I couldn't have done that. I can tell you're upset, though. So can Mum. I told her what happened, so she might be in soon. Thanks, Frankie, I said, and I meant it. She was a great sister sometimes. She went and closed the door behind her, and I was left to my thoughts, which isn't always a great idea when I'm feeling like this. I did feel better, though. I think sometimes when you're a good person, it just baffles your brain a bit when people are so cruel. You know, when you could never imagine doing that to someone else. I had to take my mind off things, so I decided to watch some YouTube on my tablet for a while before dinner. By the time I went to bed that night, I was feeling a lot more like myself. I had a great time playing Minecraft with Charlie. We laughed so much, I completely forgot about everything that happened today for a whole hour. I knew I wouldn't sleep great, but mostly because I was nervous for the results of the auditions tomorrow, and not because of Ebony. I was winning already. Morning arrived. I actually slept well. I struggled to eat breakfast because my stomach was a mushy mess of nerves. Me and Charlie talked mostly about the results of the auditions on the way to school. I told him how much I hoped Ebony was awful and that they still chose me to host the game show. He already knew though, obviously, and again he managed to cheer me up. Even if you don't get to be the host, you can still steal the show. You are Freddie Farnham, future comedian extraordinaire. If you can't steal the show, no one can. We both burst out laughing. Yes. You're right, let's do this. And we walked into school, swaggering confidently. On entering the classroom, there was a crowd of people around the notice board already. Nerves hit me again like a football in the stomach. We approached and tried to make our way through, so we could see the list. I saw Ebony first. She smirked at me, but I ignored her. I finally got to the front. Goodness knows where Charlie had gone. I scanned the piece of paper in front of my eyes, but the information didn't reach my brain straight away. I blinked hard and tried again. Game show character list. Contestant 1, Zach Hunter. Contestant 2, Charlie Heathcote. Contestant 3, Freddie Farnham. Assistant host, Ruby Downey. Host, Ebony Lount. Prop managers, Taylor McKinley and Eddie Rawlings. Angelica Hawthorne can read her wonderful poem after Lily McCoy does her life cycle demonstration. It was just as I had feared. I was upset, but I remember what Charlie had said. There was no way I would let Ebony be the star of the show. Chapter 9. Our class was very busy after that day, with practising as often as we could. We were determined that we would make this the best assembly Lodgestone Primary School had ever seen. Even Ebony seemed to be putting effort in. Yeah, she was nowhere near as good as I would have been, but she was okay, and I actually think she regretted what she did sometimes, with all the extra work involved with being the host. I was much happier because I may have been a contestant, but I was the contestant that wins the game show. The day of the assembly came around so fast, but we were all feeling pretty good. I was still trying to think of a way to steal the show from Ebony. I had thought of a few jokes I could add into my script, so for now that would have to do. I thought I would be feeling nervous, but I was actually just excited. As we all lined up down the corridor ready to go into the hall, we could see the last of the parents going through the double doors. It felt like I had a million tiny butterflies inside my stomach. I looked at Charlie, who was behind me, and he didn't look nervous at all. He just flashed me another one of his big grins. We slowly walked into the hall with Emily Hopkins holding the door open. The room was full, with the parents sitting at the back on chairs, and the rest of the students from all the other classes in the school sat cross-legged in neat rows in front of them. The teachers were on chairs lining the edge of the room. We sat on benches at the front of the hall against the wall, facing our captive audience. I tried to look for my mum, but I couldn't see her. I had a bit of a panic, then saw Frankie give a little wave and followed her gaze to the third row back and saw Mum sitting on the end. She was looking at me, so I smiled and waved. She waved back, and I felt myself relax slightly. Mr. Chatham stood in front of the audience with his back to us. I could see he was wearing a light blue suit today. Our head teacher always wore really colourful suits with crazy ties. I've no idea where he bought them from. I'd never seen any in Next when I was dragged along with Mum. He began his usual assembly routine with a twist as he acknowledged the parents sitting at the back and proceeded to introduce our class. He nodded to Mrs. Fountain, who stood up and addressed the patiently waiting crowd. Year 5 have been working very hard on this assembly, and I know they are very excited to share with you what we have been learning about in the last few weeks in a very original way. She sat down and Ruby walked to the front. We have been learning about life cycles. Here are our finished projects. Everyone stood and held their projects in the air. Then we went along the line and each of us told the eager eyes watching what our project was about and read a small passage. There was everything from flowers to sloths, that's mine, to Taylor and Eddie's footballers, which made everyone watching laugh. Next, it was time for the life cycle. Lily explained the life cycle of a frog, first using some frog spawn she had made using bubble wrap with black dots on. Next, she went to Taylor, who was holding a jar with holes in the top, which contained several little black tadpoles that Lily had gotten from her garden pond. Everyone seemed to be loving it. Next she went to Eddie, who was holding a plastic lunch box, again with holes in the lid. He took the lid off and passed her a fairly small mottled green and brown frog, which Lily had also found in her garden. I couldn't help wondering if they were the frog's babies in the jar. Lily walked to the front, clutching the frog, and told the audience a little bit about it. The foundation students at the front squeaked a little when it started to wriggle in her hands. She had just started to walk back to put it away when it sort of jumped out of her hands in a flash. There was a lot of commotion, as Mrs. Fountain and Mr. Chatham both stood up and started to run toward Lily, who was panic-stricken. Eddie and Taylor were on their knees looking for the escapee frog. Chapter 10. After about 5 minutes of frantic searching, the frog still hadn't been found, so Mr. Chatham attempted to regain some order. His round, bald head red and sweaty. Mrs. Fountain looked dishevelled as she put her glasses back on straight and brushed down her brown tweed skirt. I noticed a ladder in the back of her tights. Who knew a little frog could cause so much disruption? It was fun to watch though. Me and Charlie were just laughing the whole time. Eventually order was restored and Mrs. Fountain stood up to address the audience and our class. Well, what a kerfuffle. I'm sure that little frog was just spooked by everyone and he has gone to hide in a dark corner somewhere. He will turn up later when the hall is empty. I'm not sure who she was trying to convince, us or herself. So, if Year 5 would like to continue, that would be wonderful. Angelica, perhaps you would like to carry on. Mrs. Fountain went and sat back in her chair, carefully checking the seat before she sat down. I think everyone was a little on edge. Angelica took centre stage. She was clutching her poem in her hands and looked a little flustered. I felt Charlie nudging me, but this time I ignored him. As Angelica began her poem in her soft sing-song voice, Ebony disappeared into the changing rooms to get ready for the game show. After Angelica sat down and everyone gave her a round of applause, Taylor and Eddie began to get the set ready for the game show. Everyone took their places and Ruby approached the front. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to our game show, The Weakest Link in the Life Cycle, and here is your host, Ebony. Everyone clapped as Ebony flounced through the double doors in her red afro wig, cowgirl waistcoat, and my microphone. Yes, Miss Stewart insisted I lent it to her. Everyone laughed. There was supposed to be my laughs. I could feel the heat rising in my face as I stood behind a music stand. I refused to get angry or cry. I definitely was not going to cry. I was going to play it cool. I could do that. Ebony went through her lines with all the natural wit of a stick insect. Sorry to insult a stick insect, but honestly, I think the nerves had gotten the better of her. She began asking us the questions written down on the cards in her hand. We all gave our answers, and in the first round, everyone got them right. In the next round, there was multiple choice. Zach and Charlie had to give really silly answers so I could get it right and win the show. It was hard not to laugh when Charlie was asked what a caterpillar grew into, and he said with confidence, a whale. Everyone in the room erupted into fits of laughter. We had to wait a little while until Ebony could ask the final question to me. She had a smug smile on her face again when she asked my question, what is it called when a creature changes form into another creature? I forced a smile onto my face and answered, metamorphosis. Would you like me to spell that for you? Everyone laughed. It felt good. I know it was cruel, but it was the least she deserved. She announced me as the winner and I walked out to the front to join her. Suddenly, she started doing a weird dance. She looked like she was going loopy, jumping around making odd screechy noises whilst hitting herself. I'd never seen anything quite like it in my life, and everyone started laughing again, thinking it was part of the show. I looked at Charlie, then back to Ebony, just in time to see something small and slimy fall from her arm. The frog! I've never been much good at sports, but I dived forward with my hands outstretched and closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was somehow lying on my back, with my cupped hands one on top of the other up in the air. I carefully stood up and opened my hands. There sat a little frog. Before I could say anything, Mr. Chatham cleared his throat and put his hand up in the air to silence the audience and said, Freddie found the frog. What a hero! Eddie removed the frog from my hands and placed it safely back into his container, just as everyone started to clap. For me! I took a little bow just as Ebony, with a face as red as beetroot, ran out of the hall with Angelica dutifully chasing after her. Chapter 11. So, that's what happened. I told you, viral stuff. I could be rich, except part of Mr. Chatham's beginning of a class assembly speech is about no photos or videos, blah, blah, blah. This is basically just a typical day in my life. Well, pretty much. Anyway, after that, Ebony was off school for 3 days, and when she did come back, she was very quiet, and people are still laughing now. If I'm honest, I feel a bit sorry for her. That could have been me. It was supposed to be me. I think she will think twice before stealing other people's ideas again, and she definitely got her comeuppance, as Mum would say. But I'm not quite sure what that means. See, so I'm not a drama queen. At least I don't make the drama. Not all the time anyway. It just finds me. Hopefully I will get a bit of peace for a while. Or maybe not, because in 3 weeks it's sports day. Ah! The end. And thank you for listening. Please subscribe.